Hi, hello, my name is Sam, my pronouns are they, them, and welcome back to my office. So it is Autism Acceptance and Awareness Month, and what could possibly be a better way to celebrate as an autistic queer book lover than hyping up autistic authors that I really love and their books. So, hi, if you did not know, my name is Sam, I am autistic, and I started reading books featuring autistic main characters unknowingly in 2019 with a really popular book series. I kind of consider it like a classic now, at this point, at least for like the area of reading that I am into, and I remember that experience like really viscerally as a moment of understanding and a feeling of comfort. So I started unknowingly with this book series about an autistic female protagonist in a romance, and I really loved it as an unknowingly autistic lesbian in a failing relationship with my high school sweetheart who was a man. No shade on him. He's a vibe, but lesbian and autistic, and he definitely was not emotionally prepared for everything that I brought into the scenario. And this book series really ended up being a home for me, and after coming out and finding my current life partner, who is the love of my life, she really encouraged me to start unmasking without even knowing that I was autistic at all. Like, she definitely had an idea about it before I did, and then maybe a year later I started on my diagnosis. So that's kind of my journey, and books have always really been a crucial way that I explore and understand myself as a person, from just being a kid clinging to The Phantom Toll Booth by Norton Juster. Like, my life depended on it. Like, that was my justification for existing at that time, to now ending up like losing myself in The Spirit Bears Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White. You know, books have just always been a way for me to conceptualize myself as a queer and autistic person, so this list of favorites is just like a little love letter to authors helping me understand my space in the world. And along with that, I will be doing a TBR that will hopefully expand on this list of love. So with that, we have a lot to talk about, so let's get started with some of my favorites. Let's get started with the classic. The first ever, like, what I can remember as outwardly autistic book that I ever read. Well, it's a series, but I started with the first book. So it is the Kiss Quotient series by Helen Hoang. So each of these three books, the Kiss Quotient, the Bride Test, and the Heart Principle, follows the story of three best friends through family intervention, miscommunication, and just chaos as they unknowingly fall in love. So we'll start with the Kiss Quotient. This one follows Michael and Stella. Michael is an escort who is really just trying to take care of his family, make sure everyone's okay, and kind of holding the weight of the world on his shoulders after his deadbeat father left them to suffer. And then we have Stella, who is really successful. She creates algorithms for a living, and she is autistic. Her parents are pressuring her like no other to get married and have babies, and she doesn't understand the dating world or how she continues to fail in it. So she ends up hiring Michael as an escort to then teach her how to be in a successful relationship in both a romantic and, in the beginning, a sexual capacity. So this unlikely pair slowly learns to communicate with each other, but more importantly with themselves. So this is really like a self-discovery book on top of their romance, as they unravel their own relationship hang-ups. I love this. I give this 5 stars. I've read this 3 times now. 3. Since 2019. And you know what? I still want to read it again. I never get tired of this series in general, but specifically this book, because this book, it just holds like a very special place in my heart. I loved every second of it, and even if I can't relate to Stella on every single aspect of it, I so easily connected to her despite us being so very different, and I sympathized with Michael so much throughout this book. I just loved this, and this was also one of my first dives into Vietnamese books. So Michael is in a fairly large Vietnamese family, so it was also kind of digging into that as an initial experience for me, and I ended up loving it. So the next one we have is The Bride Test. The Bride Test follows Kai, a successful autistic adult with a loving family and a really regulated life, but he thinks he's defective because he doesn't feel or express emotions in the same way that his family and his loved ones around him do. And Esme, who is a single Vietnamese mom who is struggling to get her feet beneath her in Vietnam. So Kai's mom ends up traveling to Vietnam, and she finds Esme while she is at work, and she just kind of feels like a real connection to Esme. The mother went to Vietnam specifically to find someone to bring back for Kai, because she's a traditional Vietnamese mom. And she didn't like any of her options until she found Esme a hard-working and clearly strong-willed woman. After Kai's mom brings Esme back to America in a scheme to get him to marry her, Esme is stuck trying to make it work in a new country with a man who won't open up to her and a deadline from his own mother. These two have to learn to overcome communication, cultural differences, and sensory experiences if they ever want to make it work. And I loved this book so much for the emotional aspect with Kai. I thought that it was such an interesting, detailed, and beautiful experience of self-discovery for him and accepting his autistic self. But I also really enjoyed it for some of the cultural differences there. My partner is Brazilian, and I am very clearly white as day, and I eat like it. So, like, no seasonings. So when we first moved in together, I felt the way that Kai feels when he smells just the fish sauce everywhere, and he just starts to freak out because everything just smells like fish sauce. And you know what? I felt that so hard when my partner and I moved in together, and she was just like cooking with like seasonings, and like I was like, what are these smells? These smells are unacceptable in my household. We cannot be doing this. So I connected with them so severely on the sensory experience, and I just really enjoyed this one. I think that Esme as a character was so interesting and well fleshed out too, and there was definitely a language barrier there, so it could have so easily been like disregarding her, but Helen Hoang really made her a full-fledged, beautiful character, and I loved their romance so much. Finally, we have The Heart Principle. This follows Quan, a fashion entrepreneur, and Anna, a burnt-out violinist, as they try time and time again to just be a one-night stand. Well, spoiler alert, that does not work out. And it fails as their feelings start to ramp up. Anna is unexpectedly thrust into a family role that she is set up to fail in from the start. If they want their story to continue, they can't only fight for their relationship, but for themselves. This one felt like so much more than a romance, and Helen Hoang even at the end talked about how this story was the closest to her autistic experience as a person, and you can definitely tell. I feel like this one felt the most realistic, like the most real out of all of them. Not to say that the other two are not. Like, they don't depict like real life or what could be real life events, but this one felt the most genuine, and I thought it was so interesting. And in the beginning, I thought this was my least favorite of the series. I say that as this was like a 4-star and not a 5-star, but the more that I sat on it, the more that I realized how much I loved it for its authenticity and the depth of the characters, even just outside of the romance. It was so good. So the Kiss Quotient series, 5 stars all around. I loved it. Helen Hoang is an auto-buy author for me. I just feel such severe nostalgia when it comes to her. I love it so much. My next favorite is actually one that I read just a couple weeks ago, but I knew that this was going to be a favorite for me, and it is The Spirit Bares Its Teeth by Joseph White. So this is a YA horror that should not be taken lightly. This gothic horror follows Silas, a trans boy in Victorian England who is forced into the roles of purple-eyed women despite his love of surgery. After a failed attempt to gain his freedom, his fiance's father puts him in a school to cure him of veil sickness, which is just a fake disease created by men to justify their abuse on women. And Silas must band together with the girls of the school and his fiancée, secretly a trans woman, to figure out what happened to the ghosts of the previous students and to save them all. This was 5 stars. I felt so connected to Silas. He was such an interesting main character. He was so dynamic. I just connected with him so much. I think that this specifically being pushed out as like only a YA horror kind of does it a little bit of injustice, because it's kind of a murder mystery too. Like, I kind of feel like the murder mystery aspects kind of take up a lot of space in it, because horror is definitely a big aspect of this. There are some really severe trigger warnings in this, especially for like medical gore and just gore in general. But this is kind of a murder mystery. This is a life or death murder mystery, and it was just fantastic. Another aspect of it that I feel like is essential and which brought me so much unexpected joy was the fact that it was a T for T story. And as a T for T person, I loved this. I loved that unexpected romantic aspect of it. I thought it was so authentic, and it just rounded out the story so nicely to see the beauty of the world kind of coming together. I loved every second of it. It was so interesting. It was horrifying. It was gruesome. There was betrayal. It was just heartbreaking. But if you are someone who is okay with horror and gore, you should pick this up. This is not a beginner horror, but this is such a fantastic book that if you can manage it, pick it up. Read the trigger warnings in the front of the book though. So for the next 3, I only have, they're all in the same series, but I only have the first book, which is a tragedy, which is truly a tragedy, because I wish I had the 6th book. But we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. And it is the Bergman Brother series by Chloe Liese. So I'm talking about 3 of the books in the series, because 3 out of 7 books feature autistic main characters, which is just beautiful. It is just everything. So we're gonna start with Always Only You by Chloe Liese. This one is book 2 in the series. So this is about professional hockey player Ren, who is just a sweet ray of sunshine in a typically violent game, and he has eyes for no one other than his team's social media manager, Frankie. While Frankie is a no-nonsense autistic woman with rheumatoid arthritis who has to hold her own against a team of large hockey players every day. And while most women would fall over just to get to look at Ren, Frankie has too much going on and is determined to keep herself closed off. Until that goes to shit, obviously. This is a beautiful, classic Grumpy Sunshine moment like no other. And I really enjoyed it. I thought that this was fun. I thought that this was like a light-hearted but still deeply profound romance. I think that Chloe Liese really takes the time to highlight disability and understanding in partners, and even if the love interest who is disabled feels unlovable because of their disability, she really doesn't ever put it in the other love interest's mind that has an impact on the effect of their love at all. And I think that's such a beautiful thing in a world where people treat disability like it is an end-all be-all. Like, the amount of work that you have to put into your partner is just too much. It makes your love for them, like, lesser. So I think having this representation is so beautiful and important and impactful. And I think that also putting it in, like, those classic tropes that you just want to eat up like nothing else just puts this book into the hands of people who might not prioritize reading books about disabled characters. So I thought this was beautiful. I thought that this was well done. I love Chloe Liese's writing, but I think that it's very clear that her writing from book 1 to book, like, 4 and up was 1,000 times better. Like, the writing in this is not as good as the writing in her later books, and she's published all these books fairly quickly. Like, it's a 7-book series published in, what, like 3-4 years? Something like that. So you can definitely very quickly see how all of the writing practice has really impacted it as you go forward in the series. So is the writing in this one top tier? Not really. It's okay, but it gets better. It gets better. I promise it gets better. But her character development really makes up for anything that the writing might lack in the beginning. So the second book that I'm talking about in the Bergman Brothers series is With You Forever, which is book 4. This is where it starts to get good. This is where it starts to get, like, going. This book follows Axel and Rooney as yet another Grumpy Sunshine dynamic shines through the Bergman Brothers series. Axel is a very serious artist living in the woods of Washington, taking care of his family's beloved vacation home and himself when Rooney gets thrown into his path, just in time for a marriage of convenience. All while she is desperately trying to deal with a flare-up of her IBD and get away from embarrassment, while he uncovers his artistic muse again, right under her nose. This slow burn, friends to lovers romance is filled with angst, home renovations, and beautiful understanding. This is another one where, again, I really want to push forward the fact that these characters who are disabled, they feel unlovable to an extent because of their disability, and they feel like they can't, like, be their full selves, or they really need to hide pieces of themselves. And I love the way that Chloe Liese breaks down those walls and those barriers to show that your disability has nothing to do with your worthiness of love. And she shows that in both Axel and Rooney separately, which I loved, because I had never read a story with, like, an IBS girly. Like, I know that y'all are out there, y'all are struggling. I know that y'all are struggling like no other. But I had never actually read a story where you had to, like, take that into account. Like, books are just the kind of thing that you don't acknowledge anyone's bathroom habits. Like, why would you? Oh, this is why. So, this was my first time consuming really any media with an IBS disorder, and I thought it was really interesting to read. I can't talk about its authenticity because I have no experience, but I just think that it's something that it brings that to your mind. And even if I don't understand, like, the actual disorder itself, it brings to mind, like, the level of embarrassment and the planning that has to go in to having a disorder like that, which is also something that I didn't really think about. So getting to read about that, I just thought was a really great experience, and it brought a lot more things to my brain, like, in real life, that you don't think you're going to take away from, like, a cute smushy romance. And even outside of all of that, like, watching Axel feel the weight of responsibility on him at every corner, and being able to lean on and rely on Rooney, like, increasingly so as the story goes on, was just, like, a beautiful thing to witness. And then he's just like, oh shit, I do be in love with my wife, but she's not my wife. Like, she's my wife, but she's not. It was just beautifully done, and I loved every second of it. It was very good. Like, this is when you start to tell that her writing starts ramping up. Like, it's definitely getting better at this point. And let's talk about book 6 in the series. My favorite book of the Bergman Brothers series that no one can argue with me at all over. Have another bookish hot take. Book 6 in the Bergman Brothers series is top tier. Is better than all others. No questions. It is If Only You by Chloe Liese. Oh, okay. So we are following the youngest Bergman sibling, which is Ziggy, the youngest sister, as she is determined to gain independence and a name for herself in both her family and her soccer career. She is the youngest person in the family, she is the youngest person on her soccer team, and she is tired of not being taken seriously because she is the baby. And who better to help her baby image than the bad boy hockey player, her brother's best friend, Seb. While his image is falling apart because he crashed his car into an elementary school while he was drunk, she approaches him with a deal. Fake date to make her seem more adult and to make him seem reformed from his bad boy ways, because his PR is trash. But he has a lot more to deal with than just his bad boy facade, because it is a facade. Because underneath is a heart and loving soul with severe self-depreciation problems. This slow burn fake dating scenario is filled with angst, adoration, and beautiful communication. It is beautiful. So Ziggy is autistic, which brings another level into this story and her baby image and her family, because I believe that she is the only one in her family who actually got an autism diagnosis. Like, Axel is autistic, but I don't believe he got an autism diagnosis until, or he might be undiagnosed, but it's not something that he like grew up with, I believe. So Ziggy is someone who got diagnosed at a younger age, and she had a really, really rough patch. And she struggled really hard with her autism and the symptoms that kind of come with that. So everyone really kind of does dote on her because they're kind of afraid of what could happen if she doesn't feel the level of support that she needs. So they just take it to like an extreme level. So it brings like a whole nother phase of like unintentional infantilization and how horrible that can be. And she is just desperate to be like treated like an adult and taken seriously. But Seb is just, oh my god, he's just so sad. He's so traumatized. He's got some severe childhood trauma, and he spends the entire book like in love with Ziggy. In love. But he's just like, I am not good enough for you. I could never be good enough for you. I am going to work so hard. We cannot be together like that until I am good enough for you. And she's just like, dude, what the hell? And he's like, no, I am worshiping the ground you walk on. You are everything. I bow down to you. I am not worthy. And she's just like, what? And it is just so good. It is so good in every way. I loved every single second of it, and no one can tell me it's not perfect. It's my favorite. I'm so mad that I don't have a copy of the self-published covers because I hate the new covers for this entire series, but it's a whole nother scenario. Let's talk about my next favorite. Another recent one that I just read for the Trans Rights Readathon, and it was Yours Insatiably by Aveda Weiss. So this is a steamy office monster romance that follows Avrin, an autistic succubus hiding herself from the world, and Pi, an out and loud non-binary part-time sex worker. They find every way to disrupt Avrin's day just to see the irritation on her face, and she is ready to toss him out of the office daily. He goes by he, they pronouns specifically. But after one hookup / feeding when he shows up at her door, the chemistry cannot be ignored. Follow along as Pi tries desperately to get Averin to open up, and she tries desperately to stay hidden. This was such a cute, like, not enemies to lovers, but not like friends to lovers either. It was more of like irritant to lovers kind of scenario, and it was so fun to get through. It was light, it was airy, but it was also serious. And Averin is autistic, and that is not something that like was a main proponent of the story. Like, it was a main proponent of her, but her autism really wasn't the thing that gave her issues. It was her identity as a succubus. So we spent a lot of the story not only dealing with like the angst between the two of them and the horrendous pining, but also just like the Pi trying to get her to accept herself for who she is. And things ultimately went awry, as of course they do. But I just think that Pi was such a beautiful love interest to have in this story. I think that this story was hot, it was steamy, it was fun, but it was also serious in its support and its encouragement of being your true self, even if it is scary and even if people will say weird things to you. I also think that the communication and the emotional response that Averin has to Pi was so beautiful. It was so well done. She fought herself tooth and nail every time, but when it came down to like prioritizing something, one specific thing that he really wanted, and he kind of challenged her to get it, like, she prioritized it. She did it. She made it happen because it brought him a piece of home that she wanted him to have. And that's the part of autistic romance that I think is so beautiful. Don't you, Ellie Belly? I think it is so incredibly beautiful to have that level of compassion and that way of communicating how you really feel about a person and like expressing your love. And I thought it was just beautiful, on top of it being fun and spicy and good. So the final favorite I have to talk about is another one that I consider like a classic at this point. And it is Ator Age E Brown by Talia Hibbert from the Brown Sisters trilogy. I love this entire trilogy. If you have not picked up this entire trilogy by Talia Hibbert, please do. The entire trilogy is worth it. But this one specifically focuses on two autistic main characters. So Eve is chaos at its finest, beautiful, righteous, and destructive. But after a stunt with some doves and an unhappy bride, her parents are putting the chaos to an end and forcing her to try something new, growing up. In comes a cute little bed and breakfast and a control and rule-oriented owner, Jacob. Well, it's not so easy to dispel the chaos, and one thing leads to another. Jacob's arm is broken, he's understaffed, and Eve is his only hope. But the more time he spends with this sunny ball of chaos, the more it melts his frosty exterior. Follow these two autistic characters as they discover things about themselves they never knew, and bring out the best in each other. This was grumpy sunshine to an extreme. Loved it. It was beautiful. When I say that Eve is chaos, I mean it in the best way possible. I truly mean beautiful when I say beautiful, because she is a beautiful soul. And their romance was really good, but just the way that he kind of provoked her to unmask and be her true self unapologetically, because she's had this label of the baby of the family, the chaotic one, the this, the that, the irresponsible one, and he really gave her the chance to take her life into her own hands and be her true self without judgment was so good. And the fact that she encouraged him to like let loose and let go of control a little bit and understand that his controlling nature is kind of like a coping mechanism for the world around him was so well done too. I just loved them both as individuals. I loved them both together in their romance, but the beauty of the story is really the inner work that the two of them were able to bring out in each other. And I loved that. And that feels really deep for like this cute little cartoon romance cover, but like it is that deep. And I really want to reread this whole series now that I'm talking about it, so fuck me, honestly. So there we go. There are some of my favorite autistic books for many reasons, and most of them are romance. One of them is horror. I'm lacking in the fantasy department, but let's move on to my TBR, where I have a vast array of genres to be consumed. So these are all things that I want to get to eventually. I really want to get to them, but I'm taking my time with them too. You know, I gotta savor the beauty and like save a good autistic book for when I'm in the mood for a specific genre. So let's just jump right into those. Let's start with Something More by Khalilieh. So this is an autistic YA romance, and it is written by a Palestinian Canadian author. So even more of a reason to grab this book. This book follows a 15-year-old Palestinian Canadian, Jessie, just weeks after getting her autism diagnosis and just before starting high school. She has created the ultimate list to help her get a fresh start, but things go awry with two unexpected boys. So let some of this beautiful, classic YA romance drama begin. That's what I got from it. And you know what? Everyone needs a classic YA romance sometimes. Sometimes it's necessary to just feel that soft, smushy, angsty beauty in their lives. And I'm saving this book for that moment in time where I just want the beauty and the simplicity of a YA romance. Because sometimes you want it. Sometimes you want to go back in time and you want to feel that angst to the extreme. And that is a beautiful time in life. Super, super simple explanation, but like, you know what I mean when I say a classic YA romance. Classic. The next one we have is Unseely by Ivelisse Housman. So this came out last year, and this is the first book in a YA fantasy duology that follows an autistic changeling twin, Zelia, and her sister, Isolde, as they embark on a heist gone wrong. Their attempts might not have been in vain, though, as they begin unraveling a mystery that has its roots in the history of humans and fae alike. This one I have heard so many fantastic things about, and I love that it's a high fantasy duology. I think that there is beauty in a duology. I really do. I really, really do. And I don't think people appreciate a duology enough. But I love a good duology, and I haven't picked up like a really solid, good duology since Strange the Dreamer by Lonnie Taylor. So I'm on the lookout for one. So I'm saving this for that moment in time. The next book on my TBR has an unexpected twist to it that I did not know, because I am not good at keeping up on author shit. So the next one is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. Unbeknownst to me, the shock that I felt when I found this Wikipedia, Mira Grant is Seanan McGuire's pen name for horror and sci-fi. If I had known that, I probably would have prioritized picking this up more, because I love Seanan McGuire. If you need to know how much, there's like a 40-minute video breaking down every book in the Wayward Children series that I did, I think, last year. So you can go look at that if you want to, but like that's a lot of autistic hyperfocus right there, as I devoured those books and broke them apart piece by piece by piece. But besides that, in this sapphic ocean horror, we follow scientist Victoria Stewart as her and her team dive beneath the waves in search of answers near the Marina Trench. While each person has their own purpose, all follow the path of the lost crew of the Ator Goddess in their search. But the secrets of the deep come with a price. Oof. Oh, this gives me Our Wives Under the Sea vibes, and I have been wanting to pick something up like that again, because I picked up Providence Girls by Morgan Dante, and it kind of gave those vibes, but I'm looking for something a little bit more in the ocean now. So I'm hoping that this will give me that in the ocean kind of vibe that I'm looking for. But not yet. I'm not there yet. The time is not right. I will know the time in my heart when it's ready. So the next one is actually the second book in this universe, the Birdverse universe, that I fell in love with for the Trans Rights Readathon, not this year, but last year. So this is The Unbalancing by R.B. Lemberg. R.B. Lemberg is a bigender, autistic, and Ukrainian author. They are fantastic, obsessed. They wrote the Four Profound Weaves that I ate up. That was beautiful. That story was stunning. I loved every second of it. This is actually the first full-length novel in their Birdverse universe. This high fantasy follows Ranra and Lewin. I am probably butchering these names, and I apologize so severely, because they deserve better than coming out of my mouth with me and my lisp and all of the other problems that I have. So one is a Starkeeper and one is a potential Starkeeper that is being pushed in that direction. And they are pushed together when the world starts to shake. Their instant spark is not only for romance, though, as an unforeseen configuration of their magical deep names illuminate the growing trouble underneath the tides. While their romance may just be beginning, the fate of the world they protect might be on its last leg. I think R.B. Lemberg is the most stunning writer. They write the most beautiful stories. I'm obsessed. And I am just ridiculously excited to pick this up. I need to get a physical copy of the Four Profound Weaves still. I need to get a physical copy of this. I need to own every single thing that R.B. Lemberg has ever put out into this world. That is how strongly I feel about them. Love, 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 love. If you have not picked something up by R.B. Lemberg, do it. The final one that I have on this specific TBR is one that I am beyond words excited for. I might be the most excited for this one out of all of them. And it is 8 Kinky Nights by Zan West. They are let me read their exact words. They are autistic, genderqueer, Jewish, fat author, and oh, love, 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 love in every capacity. This is a kinky, Jewish, polyamorous, sapphic, and ace story between two older women, one a stone butch and one a femme gray ace sub, as they get into 8 nights of kink lessons to help Jordan, the stone butch, get on her feet after her divorce. These lessons end up cracking Leah, the femme sub, right open so she falls face first into her past trauma. And let me just read you this exact quote from the synopsis, because it was just beautiful. Can these two autistic queers find ways to cope with the changes they are making in their lives and support each other as they build something new they hadn't thought was possible? Oh! Oh my god. Oh my god. You know what? I know that this is like discourse in the community or whatever, as a lesbian in the community. I love stone lesbians. I like stone femmes. I like stone butches. I like stone lesbians. I like that they be setting down their boundaries and they're just like, this is it. You respect this boundary and I'm going to do what I want. And if you try shit, then we're done. And I love that clear boundary setting. I love me a stone top. They're just everything. Their communication skills are like no other. Oh, and they set such good boundaries. And I find when you set a good boundary, most of the time you obey a good boundary, and it just creates a beautiful environment. And I know that some people feel like spicy and have a heated opinion on stones. I love. So this is another part of the synopsis that I think is so wonderful. This kinky polyamorous Hanukkah female-female romance includes a friends to lovers, roommates to lovers, kink lessons, seasoned romance, and getting your groove back tropes, and polyamorous, gray ace, pansexual, Jewish, fat, autistic, disabled, arthritis, PTSD, and depression representation. Oh! The clarity. The putting it all right out front. The here's my story. Take it. Or go. Oh, I love that. I love that confidence in an author. I love that open communication in an author. I just think it's beautiful. I think that it's everything. I am so stupid excited to pick this up. I think that this is going to be fantastic. And you know what? I love a good romance between older queers. Love. Because both of them are in like their 40s, maybe 50s. And I just think that's a beautiful thing to lay witness to, even in a story. So I am so excited for this. I could just talk about this one for days. I can't wait to pick this one up. I have to source it, though. I do have to source it. I want to try to find it used. So that's where we are. I hope that you have taken away how beautiful autistic stories can truly be. I hope that you've gotten the chance to add some to your TBR. I hope that you are just excited to embrace autistic people in this beautiful month of April and every month going forward. So, I hope that everyone is having the most fantastic day, and I will see y'all next time.